to say, the business of professional speaking is about connecting. Connecting to our audiences from the platforms so we can enhance their lives. Connecting through them through our video content, through our online content, through our books, so we can continue to educate them. But we often forget about the connection of the meeting planners, the people who are deciding whether they want to hire us or not. And that is a relationship that is equally as important to foster and to build upon. I look at all of you in this audience today, and I think about you and your journeys and all that you have to offer and your expertise. For some of you, it was a one-time experience that brought you to your passion. For others, it was a series of events that led you to the world of professional speaking. I want to help each and every one of you be able to book more by showing you that you need the guts to make the call. Now, technology really changed the way that we relate to one another and the way that we do business. I was born in 1955, so for those women who are of my generation, you get what I'm about to say. We talked, and we talked. In fact, I was the queen of punish assignments. I was the one who was always writing, "I will not talk in class," 150 times. But you know what the best revenge is? I now get paid for talking. So take that, you teachers. So anyway, but now we're doing business by the internet, by emailing, and I can't tell you how frustrating that is. How many times have you gotten that email where you're scratching your head, you're reading this one sentence over and over again going, what did they mean by that? Or they start to contact you about your program and they ask you a question and you return, and then they ask you another question. And it can take a day and a half to get to where I can accomplish in 15 minutes. Or do you even have the guarantee that they're going to open the email? Or are they going to delete it? Or will it get filtered into spam? So I love the conversation, because through the conversation, you have that back and forth, the give and take, the intonation in their voice. You get to hear their emotions. You get to flesh out information. You get to build on the relationship. And to me, if they get to like you, they're going to want you. And so to me, it's important to make that call, to have the guts to make the call. My story, how did I get here? I began my journey as a speaker. My stepdad unknowingly contracted HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, and unknowingly passed it on to my mom. We lost two parents who we loved dearly to this disease. We lost Charlie in 1990. I lost my mom in 1995. I wanted to speak out because they chose to keep their infectious status a secret, because they were afraid that they would be shunned, and they were afraid that they would be treated differently. And so a week before my mom died, I sat on her bed next to her and I said, "Mom, can we finally share your story? Because if we don't, we are not going to teach people about the prejudices against those with AIDS." She could not speak, but she nodded her head yes. Yeah. And that was it. So Eileen, you're up there, I love you, and I got your permission. And so I was off and running. Literally a month after her funeral, what did I do? I picked up the phone. And I called the head of AIDS surveillance for the health department in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, where I live. And I introduced my story. And he immediately said, "This is fabulous, I want to bring you in. You're perfect." So they started bringing me into schools and to conferences. And for 2 years, I spoke to everybody and anybody that I could. And I didn't get a dime. And I was the happiest person in the world, because all I wanted to do was make a difference. And so I made that call. 2 years later, I decided, gee, I'd like to call a college. Let me try this. So I called a university close to my house, and I pitched my program to the dean of students, and they brought me in. And he loved me, and he brought me back to his office. There is a really interesting study out of Stanford University by a sociologist there, and it's about the value of weak ties. People who we do not know all that well are going to be the most influential people in our lives in terms of taking us into new directions, dramatically and quickly changing our lives. This dean of students, Jay Wright, dear friend now, I knew him from 1 hour, and he dramatically changed my life, because he sat me down and he introduced me to the whole world of the college speaking circuit. And that was it, and I was off and running. And doing 60 colleges a year, going off on my own. And then from there, because I kept making the calls, then I continued to go. I went from speaking at colleges and universities to doing Welcome Week programming and orientation programming. And then from there, creating a niche for working with collegiate athletes. I've worked with almost every notable Division I football program in the country. Here are my boys at the Tennessee Volunteers. And then I went on to working with the NFL because I had the guts to make the call. Started with the New York Giants. And this is my favorite, it's blurry, but this is my Where's Waldo photo. And if you look, hint, I always end up next to the biggest guy on the team. And then I went with yeah, they're not even the tall ones. I work with the NBA. There's one guy, I was up to his elbows. And then I went on to working with Major League Baseball. Hint, find the blonde in the room, you'll find me there. And from there, and most lately and honorably, working with the military. So, because I had the guts to pick up the phone. And so here are the things that I learned from my experience. One, you have to learn to reevaluate what's happening in the world today and keep changing your message. You need to remain relevant. So I started with HIV and AIDS for 2 years at colleges. That's all I spoke about. But then I started to recognize, one, HIV was no longer going to be the hot topic because things were changing with that disease. But secondly, most importantly, I was hearing the stories of the students who were ruining their lives, their direction, their goals because of that one night, that one inconsequential decision. So I broadened my area of expertise to address their needs. I now speak about high-risk drinking, sexual assault, bystander intervention, drug abuse, social media, and most of all, sexual health. So I am now affectionately known as the sex lady, and I fly around the country with what we call in my industry a condom demonstrator. And you should see what I go through with TSA. They look at my bag, they look around the screen, who's that pervert? They look at my bag again, and I said, I teach sex ed at colleges, and they look at me and they go, yeah, right, have a nice vacation, lady. So, anyway, so broaden your area of expertise. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't stay in one lane. You want to be able to expand yourself and make yourself relevant, and think about all the different audiences that you can relate to. I also speak to parent groups. I also speak to high school students. At 62 years of age, I'm not done yet. I have goals. I keep going. So my next goals, I would love to work with women's groups. I would love to do lunch and learns for corporations. But just keep setting new goals for yourself. You will be a lot happier if you can, okay? So also, listen to the subtle things that people say around you, because that helped me build my business. A person came up to me after I keynoted at a conference. She said, Fordham University would love to have you for our Welcome Week program when the students are moving in. Welcome Week, I never thought about that. That is now my busiest time of year. So act upon the things that you hear. And also, you know, it is so important to listen to that. Someone else mentored me and said, you really should go into collegiate athletes. And I listened to that. And that is now 2/3 of my work is with collegiate athletes because I listened. So listen and act upon it. And most of all, I want you to think about, who is your worst enemy? It's you. Yeah. We beat ourselves down all the time, don't we? Right? And I want you to think outside that, and I want you to have the confidence to stretch your limits. Who is that dream client, the dream client? Who would you really like to go for? I reached out to the NFL after getting a name from somebody when I worked at the New York Giants. And I thought, little old me, Elaine, who grew up on Gertrude Street in Clark, New Jersey, could work with the NFL. I reached out to them. And I touched base with this one person, and she said, send me your curriculum. I sent it to them. And then literally, nothing came. And you're sitting there going, oh, they don't like me, nothing's going to happen, oh, well. And then 3 weeks later, email comes in from Angela at the NFL. And I was sitting at my desk when it came in, and it was like, I don't want to open it, I don't want to open it. Because I knew it was going to say, reject. I opened it up, and the first line in that, Elaine, we love this program. Set us up with a meeting in New York. We want to talk to you. So I want you to, thank you. I want you to go beyond your possibilities, your wildest dreams. What can you do? Go for that person. Because the worst they can do is say what? No. Yeah, so then what do? Dust yourself off, pick yourself up and say, to hell with them, I'm going to do this instead. And that's what you do. And every time I got rejected, it made me even stronger, and it gave me even more resolve to push myself even further. So don't be afraid to push yourself, okay? Now, let's talk about the call. Now, I know cold calling is not for everybody, and I know it's not for every industry within the speaking business, but for those of you who are interested, let me give you some of my hints. Make the list of clients, and then find those phone numbers. I do not leave messages for people because people don't return calls anymore. So I keep calling until I get them live. What do? I have my tricks. I have my cell phone, I have my landline, and what I also have is *67. I might call somebody several times in a day until I can get them. I also kind of learn what their pattern of the day and when they're in meetings and when they're not. Now, *67, if you hit that, that will actually block your caller ID so they can't see, oh my God, this person keeps calling me over and over again. So you don't want to be a pest. So that's what I do. Now, if I don't get somebody, eventually I will leave them a voice message, tell them who I am, so it sounds warm. We're humans, we like to connect. And so I leave that warm, friendly message, and then I say, I'm going to follow up, I'm going to send you an email. You can look at my website. Now, when you do get a hold of somebody, you want to be sensitive to what their voice is sounding like. If they sound really stressed, then you want to be sensitive to that and say, this doesn't sound like a good time. Is it okay if we set up another time to talk? In the meantime, I'll send you my email, and if you have time, you can look at that. And then you connect with them after that, all right? When you do get a person that's friendly and ready to talk, you need to connect with them immediately. So you've got to give them, within 1 minute, hit them with that return on investment. What can you do that will make them want to bring you in, to make you interested to talk to them, okay? Now, we're going to do a quick exercise right now. We're going to take a moment. I want you guys to think about your dream client, and what you're going to do is you're going to turn to the person next to you, and you're going to do a 60-second, quick elevator pitch to them. That's going to make them want to hook in. And I have my little whistle, and after a minute, I'm going to blow that whistle, and then we're going to switch, and we will go to the other person. So, ready? 1 minute, go. Let's talk a little bit about your return on investment. When you're talking to somebody about your return on investment, what you want to really bring forward to that potential client is what makes you different than everybody else. For me, my interactive exercises that I am known for, my non-judgmental behaviors or demeanor, so I can really open up a conversation with my audiences, and the connection that I that I have with the students, that they're allowed to reach out to me months and years after they see me. What makes you different? It is so important that you get that. Use some of the language that you get from your clients, because there's a lot of things I would not have even thought to share. But then someone will come up to me and go, God, I loved you because of this. So you want to be able to do that. Now, most importantly, when you talk to somebody, listen. Larry King, the night that he went off the air, said, I never learned anything while I was talking. It is so important to listen. And there's a fine line between selling yourself, overselling yourself, and not giving the person a chance to talk. And so when I get on the phone with people, I will say to them, what are your greatest concerns? What are your greatest challenges? And you know what? I am such a better speaker because of those conversations, because I learn more from them than they do from me. And it has made me remain relevant. It has helped me to transition my subject matter over the years. Call up one person one day, several falls ago, oh, we have all these students that are going to the hospital because they've been overdosing on 4 Loko, an energy drink that was mixed with alcohol. And I had to incorporate that. Suddenly I kept hearing about Four Loko everywhere, but that one person turned me on to it. Then there was a student, Nico Bedaramis, who was all over CNN, all over the news, because he was a basketball player here in university, and he had unprotected sex with this girl, knowing that he was HIV positive. The health department discovered it, and they arrested him. He was in jail. I called Huron University. I talked to them for several months, and finally, they decided to bring me out. And they said when I got there, you know, we actually talked to several other speakers, but we decided to bring you in. And I said, why? And they said, because you listened. So listen, because that's the art of conversation, that give and take. And most of all, develop that important friendship with them. Ask people, where were you before this? What did you do? It opens all that up. I recently talked to somebody, turned out that her best friend is somebody from Clark, New Jersey, in a town that I graduated with this girl. She's like, get out. We know the same people. We talked for an hour. She called me back a week later. She said, you know what? I'm going to bring you in because we're friends now. Become friends with that person. Write down those notes. Write down the details of what you heard, because that is so crucial. Okay? In this crazy world of professional speaking, we go from the highest of the highs to the lowest of the lows. Those lows when the work isn't coming in as quickly as we would like it to. Or the lows when you work so hard to get this client and they ended up going with somebody else. Or when the cash flow isn't coming in as consistently as we would like it to. Because as professional speakers, we don't have the luxury of knowing that we are going to go to work on Monday and that we are going to get a paycheck on Friday. We have to work really hard for our work. I tell people, I don't have a job. I have to work every day to keep my job. But for 20 years, I pushed through, because you know what? It's those highest of the highs. When you're on stage and you know that you've got the audience in the palm of your hand from the minute that you open your mouth, and you walk off that stage and you say to yourself, I can't believe I get paid to do this. There's nothing better. Or when somebody comes up to you and they said, thank you, you changed my life. It doesn't get any better than that. So, as professional speakers, we have the ability to transform, to inspire people, to change their lives through the spoken word. So for each and every one of you, my NSA family, I honor every one of you. I honor your journeys. And I hope that what I shared with you today will help you be able to book more, so you too can share your ever important message. Go for it. Have the confidence. Reach out. Have the guts to make the call. Thank you, NSA. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you. Thank you.